everyone, I hope you are doing great today. Welcome back to SEDA College Online for one more class. So, I know that I always start with the same question, but sometimes I change it a little bit for you. Today, I haven't changed it. It's the same old question, how do you feel today? And you can write in the comments how you feel. It's important for me to know in what situation you find yourselves while we're having a class. But I hope that you all enjoy it and you're all well. Alright, guys. So today we have a really interesting lesson as well, and I think we're going to see many different things. So anytime if you feel like you are getting confused about something, please tell me, alright? So my first question, and of course I'm sure now you get what the topic of today's class is what are the risks of driving? You can type a few answers in the comment section. I don't know if some of you drive, some of you don't drive, but either way there are a lot of risks, and I'm sure you know them, if not from experience, then just from common sense. Although common sense is not something that is always present for many drivers. So tell me the first risk that comes in your mind when you drive. And in order to help you a little bit and help you get some ideas, I have a few words here that can cause accidents, can cause risks during driving. One of them is reckless driving, okay, when you're not careful, or night driving. We have speeding, very common, rain. I don't know if you have noticed that, but usually people go crazy when it rains. I don't know why. We have distracted driving. You might be distracted by several different things. Drunk driving, wrong way driving, and improper turns. So many people take a wrong turn. Maybe it's not allowed to turn to your left, but you do, and you may cause an accident. We have design defects. Maybe it's not your fault, but it's the car's fault. Running red lights, of course, and tailgating. I don't know if it reminds you of something. If you analyze the word tail, it means that you drive very, very closely to the vehicle in front of you. That's tailgating. So let's see if you can guess which are the most common reasons that cause accidents. I want you to look very, very quickly at these 10 reasons again and try to put them in an order from number 1 to number 10, okay? From the one that causes more accidents to the one that causes fewer accidents. I'll just give you a minute about that, but I'm sure you already have a few ideas on what might come first, or maybe in the top 3. And maybe you already have an idea of what might not be really, really common from these words given here. So just take a minute, and if you want, because maybe you don't want to write all 10 in the chat, you can write the top 3 or the top 5 of the words, just to see if you agree or if you have different opinions from your classmates. So, top 3. Let's say that I have never seen this, what my opinion would be, probably speeding, maybe the first one, distracted driving the second one, and drunk driving. But let's see what the real answers are. Okay, Distracted driving is the first one. You can be distracted by many different reasons. You want to eat, you want to talk on the phone, you want to talk to the passengers in the car. Oh, drunk driving is the second one. Speeding. So here you have your top three. Then we have reckless driving, usually teenagers who don't ignore the rules more or less, may be driving recklessly, but not only. Rain is another one. So this is your top five now. And let's see the rest. Red lights is sixth. Night driving, design defects, tailgating, and wrong way driving in proper turns is in number 10. So I guess more or less all of us have an idea of these risks that exist on the street. So what we're going to do is take a look at some tips, what you should and shouldn't do while driving. I will give you a minute to read that, and I want you to tell me if there is something mentioned here that you actually do while you drive when you shouldn't. I will read with you as well. Both the driver and the front seat passenger should always have their eyes on the road and be alert for any potential dangers. Of course, no distractions should be allowed. For example, no eating, no drinking, no talking on the phone. Neither the red nor the yellow traffic light are a sign to speed up. However, many drivers seem to think that this is the case. Either because of work or personal issues, you might feel tired. Avoid to drive at that time and give yourself some time to rest. You mustn't drink when you drive. Neither a small glass nor a sip of alcohol are acceptable. Don't try to find an excuse, there is none. If you don't usually follow any of the rules above, maybe you should rethink driving. So tell me, is there something that you actually do when you shouldn't? Do you talk on the phone while driving, for example? It's something very, very common. You see many people talking on the phone while driving. And, well, the basic reason why I have this text here for you is not only to focus on tips on what we should and shouldn't do on the street, but because I want to focus on a specific grammatical category, a specific structure. If you take a very quick look again, can you see any words that are repeated, that are used a lot? Do you see any pattern here maybe? You can tell me in the comments if you found what we're going to talk about. And if you want, you can give me an example, some examples of the words that you found. Okay, so let me tell you, we are going to talk about quantifiers. And what are quantifiers? Words like both, neither, either, no, any, none. These are quantifiers. And I want you to focus a lot and try to find some of them in the text. Just for a few seconds. Try scanning for a few seconds, alright? I would just want to pay attention to how they are used. Okay, so let's see together these words. Okay, both the driver and the front seat passenger. Be alert for any potential dangers. No distractions, no eating, no drinking, no talking. Neither the red nor the yellow, either because of work or personal issues. Neither a small glass nor sip of alcohol. There is none if you don't usually follow any of the rules above. So what do you think? Are you familiar with these words? Do you know how they're used, or you're a bit confused as to how to use them in speaking and writing? So let me help you a little bit with that. Here are all the things that you need to remember about the specific quantifiers. First of all, if you want to talk about all two options that you have, you use both and. Like here, both the driver and the front seat passenger. Okay? All the two people need to pay attention. Remember, this is only for two. Okay? And another thing that I want you to pay attention to is either or and neither nor. What's the difference? In either or, you have a few options, but you need to choose only one. Okay? So it's a choice that you must make. For example, either because of work or because of personal issues. It's usually one of the two. And neither nor means that you are unhappy with both options that are given to you. Okay? Neither the red nor the yellow traffic light are a sign to speed up. So this is the basic thing for both, either, neither. And just before we continue, because I get this question a lot, for either and neither, there are actually two different pronunciations, the British English and the American English. So you can pronounce it as E, either, neither, or as an I, either, neither. Both of them are fine. You choose whatever you prefer. And then we have another set of three words: any, no, and none. Sometimes here there is some confusion. First of all, any has two meanings. In a positive sentence, it has the meaning of everything. Like in the first paragraph, be alert for any potential dangers, which means for all potential dangers. But in negative sentences, you can also use it to mean nothing, like the last paragraph. If you don't usually follow any of the rules, okay, so none of these things is done. And then we have no and none. Here we have a confusion usually. The basic difference in form, because the meaning is exactly the same, so the form is no is always followed by a noun. I have no money. Okay. There is no eating, no drinking, no talking while driving. But when it comes to none, most of the times we use it in short answers and we don't repeat the noun. None is a way to replace the noun. Like you can see in the fifth paragraph. Don't try to find an excuse. There is none. None here replaces the word excuse. You could very easily have said there is no excuse. But in order to make it shorter, we just say there is none. So keep that in mind. And please, if you have any questions so far, write your question in the comments, because in a few seconds we are going to practice. You are going to practice. So it is your chance to have me clarify anything that is not clear for you at the moment. Okay? Now, keep your eyes on the help box about quantifiers and let's practice. I will give you a few minutes to read the sentences. Okay? Again, these are related to our topic. They are related to the risks of driving and what you should and shouldn't do. And remember the meanings. Read the sentences very carefully to understand the general idea. Okay? And I will read the sentences with you as well. Showing your friends that you're cool is reason to speed or drift. Road signs are vital. Sometimes there isn't other way to determine which way you should turn, so don't ignore them. Do you feel thirsty, hungry? Of the two is a good reason to get distracted. Stop the car and grab a bite. Wait until you get home. Cyclists, pedestrians, are many times ignored. Learn to respect them as they should respect you too. Can you think of reasons to speed in the city center? Question mark? Good, because you shouldn't. So think about a little bit more, and if you have found the answers, you can write them in the live chat or in the comments. And while trying to do it, remember to focus on the meaning. Do we have two options? If you have two options, you are in both, either, neither. And you should focus as well to the fact, do I want all options? Do I want one of the options, or I want nothing? And then maybe the short forms can help you, the question marks can help you. Now let's take a look together. The first one is no. And here I get the question a lot, why don't we use any? Remember that any needs either a question or a negative sentence. Do you see a negative verb here? No, your verb is positive. Showing your friends that you're cool is no reason. If you wanted to use any, you would say mostly something like, there isn't any reason to do that. Number 2, it's exactly what I mentioned. Okay? You have a negative sentence, you use any. Sometimes there isn't any other way. And we go to either or. Do you feel either thirsty or hungry? One of the two? Neither of the two is a good reason to get distracted. So if you're thirsty or if you're hungry, don't do it while driving. And then we have either or. Either stop the car and grab a bite, that's your one option, or wait until you get home, that's your second option. Now, both groups here are ignored, both cyclists and pedestrians. And here you have a question. Remember, we said that any is used in questions as well. Can you think of any reasons to speed in the city center? And for our short form, none. So you can think of no reasons, none. So keep that in mind. None is usually used as a short form without a noun following. So how did you do? If you have any questions about that, let me know. I will try to answer and explain it to you in the best way possible. And apart from the grammar, if there is something in the text that you want to ask me about, vocabulary, you understand something about the meaning, you can also tell me. Now let's move on, guys. I want you to practice a little bit more on your own. So I will give you a minute to try to write your own rule or rules if you're fast using some of the quantifiers. Think about our topic, risks while driving, and try to give me some tips about what I should or shouldn't do. You can use any of the words in the box. Okay? Try to be a bit creative. And generally, don't try to avoid doing these writing tasks. I know that maybe you might not be in a mood to write or something, but the more you participate and the more you actually make yourself kind of force yourself to participate and write and think more, it will be much easier for you to take in the information, to learn the information, and to form any questions, see what more you want as an explanation. Okay, so any rules, please write as many as you can. If you want just one, just one. If you have time for more, you can do more. The more the better. Okay, so I'm waiting to see your sentences, and if you are still writing, you can type your sentences later as well. Remember, I can always see your comments, especially if you write it on the platform, on the SEDA College platform. I can always see your comments even after the class. Okay, so the next topic is something a little bit controversial, but it is related to the risks of driving. Some people think that it might be a solution to the risks that come with driving, that it will save lives. I don't know what your opinion is about autonomous vehicles, or in other words, self-driving cars or other types of transportation. Just tell me very, very quick in the comments. Are you for or against autonomous vehicles? Do you like the idea or you don't like the idea, as generally speaking? Personally, for example, I think it is a good idea. Of course, there are always some concerns, but I would like to have autonomous vehicles soon in our future if possible. And let's take a look. I will show you a few pros and cons, a few advantages and disadvantages of autonomous vehicles. Some of the pros are we can have economic benefit, they will save lives, accessibility to those who cannot drive, people with reduced mobility maybe, or people who don't want to drive. We will have better traffic infrastructure for sure, and there are a lot of environmental benefits. But of course, there are always cons to disadvantages. One of them is the hacking threat. Maybe there is a moral dilemma in case of an accident. Loss of jobs, imagine of taxi drivers, truck drivers, etc. The integration is going to take a lot of time, that's definite. The change will not happen in one day. And some people like to drive, so what will happen with these people who are very fond of driving? Tell me very briefly, by looking at the pros and cons, which ones you agree more with. So I know that your opinion might be somewhere in the middle ground, but just tell me in which direction you are leaning. You have a tendency towards the pros or towards the cons. And this is something important to think about your personal opinion on these topics, especially when you write an essay where you have to show advantages and disadvantages. You must be sure about your opinion so that this will help your writing process. Actually, it will be much easier to write if you have clear ideas in your head. And of course, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about writing for and against essays, and I will give you a few tips and a model to keep in mind. Now, if you had the topic pros and cons of autonomous vehicles and you needed to give your opinion about that, this is something that you would have done in the beginning. Think a little bit about the advantages and the disadvantages, take notes, structure a little bit your ideas, brainstorm, and then, of course, these are too many, but we would choose two, maybe, or two pros and two cons to analyze. So, what would be the usual structure of the for and against essay? We would have an introductory paragraph, number 1, paragraphs 2 and 3 would be the main body, and a conclusion. So usually at that level, the word limits that you have for exams are around 120 to 180 words. So four paragraphs, maybe 5 sometimes would do it. And what I want you to remember now, your paragraphs must be clear. Sometimes I see a writing and I can't understand where the paragraph ends, if the paragraph ends, where the next one starts. That's very important. If your paragraphs are clearly separated at a point without even reading, it looks good. And you see that paragraphs 2 and 3 are about advantages and disadvantages. But how are we going to structure that? Now keep in mind that your opinion should always be the third paragraph, the last paragraph of the main body. So if you think that the advantages are more, then advantages go to the third paragraph. If you think that disadvantages are more, so you don't like autonomous vehicles, you don't like the idea, you will talk about the disadvantages in the third paragraph. This usually happens because, 1, the reader always remembers the last thing that they see on paper. You want them to remember your opinion. And then another thing is that generally it is a good idea to build up the opposite opinion first and then have a basis to focus on your own argument. But this is not the only structure that you must pay attention to, and maybe this is even more important. We are talking about the paragraph structure. the two main paragraphs here. So there are three things that you need to have in each paragraph. One, a topic sentence. Tell me what you're talking about in this paragraph. Two, of course, you must refer to the specific advantage or disadvantage that you are talking about. And third, you need to explain. So you need to give some extra information, some extra details, or even an example if you can. And this should happen in both paragraphs in the main body of your essay. Something that is also very important when you are focusing on paragraph writing is linking words. So try to use some of these linking words. Okay? You don't have to use them the whole time and everywhere because this can have the opposite result. You can overuse them, it's too much. But try to use some of them and your writing will be much better. So what we're going to do, this is a model that describes the specific topic, pros and cons of autonomous vehicles. I want you to take a quick look and focus on three things that usually examiners look at when they are correcting a writing and then when they mark a writing. One of them is the grammar. Another thing is the vocabulary. And the third one is the linking. How well you link your sentences and the linking words that you use. You see that the structure is already as it should be, 4 paragraphs, introduction, main body, conclusion. And I want you to pay attention to one detail as well. If you look at the paragraphs, which one is the longest? That's an easy question to answer. The longest paragraph is always the third one because that's your opinion. And yes, the opposite opinion is important, but you need to give more value to your argument. So you need to give more space explaining your personal opinion. So take a look at the grammar first. One thing that we want is variety. Sometimes we can only see present simple, past simple, or future simple and one be going to. Generally, we want as much variety as possible. So can you spot different types of grammar here? Can you see different tenses? Can you see passive voice? Can you see comparatives, superlatives? All these are things that you need to keep in mind, kind of a checklist every time you write. So let me show you a few to help you and give you ideas. Look at the tenses. Has become, present perfect simple. We have will have, future simple, going to. Okay. We have a passive voice, are divided, can be manipulated. There are superlatives and comparatives. We have as many individuals as, the most autonomous vehicles. Okay. We have gerunds being used, like taking, consuming. We have future continuous, will be saving. So there is quite a wide variety of different structures here. And then another thing is the vocabulary. We want you to try and use more complex vocabulary. We know that the simple vocabulary at that level is already part of your language, so we want to see more. For example, Look at all this vocabulary which is related to the topic, like autonomous vehicles. Then adjectives and adverbs that are a bit more complex are very important. Evident, easily. Try to use different adjectives instead of saying many throughout the whole text. For example, you could say numerous, numerous concerns, a great number of concerns. Okay? Many is too simple. You have other words like moral dilemma, like individuals instead of people, instead of persons, you can use the word individuals. Manipulated. We even have expressions like leaving their fate on the hands of a machine. So that's a nice thing for you to say. It shows a better knowledge of the language. And a few more. We have the potential, eliminating human error in making it disappear. Alternative sources of power, consuming, routes. So all these words are a bit more complex. They are a bit better for your level. So try to maybe build the pool of vocabulary that you have in mind and try to improve it by learning more complex synonyms of words you already use. Now, the last thing that I want to focus your attention on is, of course, linking words and phrases. And you can see how they're used. We have but to show contrast, already. For example, on top of that, on the other hand, one of the main arguments, for instance, which is not underlined here, and in order to give an example, not only such as, for example, and for instance are useful, you can use words like imagine. Imagine a world where no one will be able to cross a red traffic light. This is an example. Then you have furthermore for addition, and apart from the fact that to introduce another sentence. And of course in conclusion. So you can use some of them, like I think that this writing would be about 160 words. And how many do I have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, around 10 linking words. This is fine. You don't have to use a linking word in the beginning of every sentence, but it's good to have a good number. And of course, you can use this model and you can take a look at it later as well if you want to get ideas of how you could write a for and against essay. Another tip that I have for you is that you could try and write your own essay after reading that. Okay, you can practice a bit on your own as well. I'm sure you might have some free time at some point, so try to work on your own as well. So, this was the end of our class for today. I hope I didn't tire you a lot. We had a lot of lecturing about writing, but I think sometimes it can be very beneficial for you. But of course, don't forget to practice your writing as well. And let's do a recap. What did we see today? We did a short reading for general idea. We focused on quantifiers, some of them, because there are more quantifiers. And we focused on writing sentences using quantifiers and a for and against essay. So I hope that my tips today were helpful. Tell me, what did you like most in today's lesson? Did you think that my writing tips were of some help for you? Are you going to do some practice at home? Don't hesitate to tell me, guys. Alright, so That's it. That's the end of our class. I was really glad to be here with you today, and I will expect you to be here in our next class. See you next time. Bye bye until then.